Ronald Reagan once said, and I'm paraphrasing, liberals are not stupid, it's just that they know so much that isn't so. Dan Bongino went on Sean Hannity the other night, and of course, he kind of lit it up with the fact that liberals who are running these large city municipalities that are just overridden with crime right now, and they're kind of running around scratching their heads saying, we don't understand this, we don't get this. Bongino has been saying, yeah, they understand it clearly. They're not stupid, and they're doing this on purpose. Well, of course, as you can imagine, liberal heads exploded, to which he took to his Dan Bongino show to really explain it and lay it out, and I found it interesting, fascinating. But Dan, saying you're wrong, probably I could have titled that a little bit better. Not wrong, but I don't think you went far enough with the motive, and I want to get into that. First of all, let me just say right out the gate that I listen to Dan Bongino every single day. Watch his videos. I catch his podcast on SoundCloud. I haven't really listened to his radio show, but I really do enjoy the podcast. I love it when Dan tangles with Geraldo over on Fox News. I find Dan to be incredibly articulate. He's passionate. He can state the case succinctly without getting long, drawn out, and boring. And of course, he hails from Florida, the Orlando area where I lived myself for nearly 9 years. Love that part of the country. Miss Florida. Miss the governor of Florida a lot. But I really enjoy Dan Bongino and share his political views. And I found his insight into what is happening with this out-of-control crime and the fact that liberals aren't stupid. They know what works. And he talked about his time in the New York City Police Department was right about the time Rudy Giuliani had come on as the mayor of New York, and he and his team created a policy called broken windows.
And major cities across the country benefited, and people are alive today because of broken windows policing. And the theory was very simple. If you walk down a city block and someone breaks a window and you do nothing about it, then someone breaks another window and then another window, and it leads to a sense of decay, which leads to a downward spiral that's hard to get out of. How is that practically implemented in New York outside of the theoretical? It's very simple. It's the example I gave. You know, when you refuse to arrest the guy in the local drugstore, the Walgreens, whatever it may be, the guy say stealing deodorant. I don't care. It doesn't matter what it is. And he walks out of the store and you say, oh, let's just let it go. Folks, it's that same guy who commits the small crime, the overwhelming percentage of the time, who goes on, doesn't graduate to do it. They do these crimes at the same time. The guy who's in the street, you know, shooting people because he wants to take control of his corner to sell drugs and sling crack is not going to want to pay for stuff in a Walgreens because it's the right thing to do. He doesn't care.
Now, of course, that is the exact opposite of what liberals are telling us when it comes to managing crime. Don't worry about the little stuff. That was one of the first things Bill de Blasio did when he became the czar of New York City. They weren't going to deal with public intoxication, urinating on buildings, homelessness, etc., panhandling. We don't have time for that. And then when they, basically doing catch and release with these guys for what they considered, just minor things like shoplifting. And look what's happening with the crime in New York City. And Dan Bongino makes the strong case that, hey, listen, this was so effective under Giuliani, the broken windows, that They put it together in a program and took it out to cities across the country, who then implemented it and saw their crime rates drastically drop. And keep in mind that most of those major metropolitan cities are Democratic cities run by the Democratic machine. Yet they used the Giuliani method, the broken windows method, to great success. And now they've abandoned that, and they're just sort of scratching their heads, acting like, we don't know what's going on. And Dan Bongino says, oh, no, you know exactly what's going on.
Liberals right now are claiming ignorance. Jen Psaki, Joe Biden, Lori Lightfoot, Bill de Blasio. Oh, we don't know what's happening. It's the summer crime wave. People are just being really bad. It's the coronavirus. Pretending they're really stupid. Motive matters because they're politicians. And when you can stick a motive on them that's as evil as the one I'm suggesting, and I am suggesting it because I mean it, that they actually know what they're doing and they're allowing the body bags to pile up, even though they know they're separating themselves from broken windows policing and allowing chaos. When it's deliberate, there's a political price to pay.
So Dan asked the logical question. If the liberals know what works, they know that the policies that Rudy Giuliani enacted in New York worked. And hey, I lived in New York at the time. New York State, but used to go into the city to catch New York Mets baseball games, etc. I can tell you there was a drastic difference after Rudy Giuliani was there and really cleaned up the city, as opposed to the previous mayoral administrations, from Ed Koch to what was that guy? Mayor Dinkins, I think, Harold Washington. I mean, there were just some absolutely abysmal administrations, and crime was out of control. Giuliani came in, he got crime under control. They cleaned up Broadway. Broadway is now a major tourist destination. Families will now vacation again in New York City, all because of Giuliani policies. And so when all of that got abandoned and we're getting back into this broken system, Dan makes the case it's not that liberals are stupid, so why have they allowed it to be broken? What is the motive that they would have to want to defund the police, to not want to stop the chaos in the streets? What are they thinking?
They are allowing this to happen, the death and the body bags on the street, because they just don't care. They just don't care. They are allowing it to happen. Liberals watched what happened in the Giuliani era. Many of them were in New York City government at the time. They know what works, and they're refusing to do it. Now, why do they refuse to do it? I addressed this yesterday on the radio show and a little bit on the podcast. Why won't they just back up the cops and say, let's go back to broken windows policing. Let's go back to the Giuliani era, that style of policing, and let's save lives. Why do they let people die? You can't say that on the radio. I can say what I want because it's true. They are letting people die. Why? I'm talking about the radical left here. I want to be clear, not all Democrats. But why does the radical left hate the cops? There are two reasons. Number one, the identity politics police out there that are now the dominant portion of the Democrat Party, the far left, I want to be crystal clear who I'm talking about, have always viewed the police as symbols of institutional racism. So even though politicians know that the police could save them right now, Lori Lightfoot, Bill de Blasio, all of them in these big cities, these liberal mayors, Garcetti, others across the country, know that backing the police could save their reputations. They know it. Lori Lightfoot could clean up Chicago tomorrow. She knows exactly what to do. She'd rather see people die, though. But there's another reason they hate the cops, not just that they see them as symbols of racism and institutional racism. It's this guns versus butter approach. Again, I addressed yesterday in the radio show, but didn't get to talk about it in the podcast. I'll address it again today. Liberals understand that social spending is the way to attach people to big government. Whatever you can give them, give them. Free housing, free food through SNAP programs, welfare, Section 8, Medicaid, whatever it is. Liberals want to detach you from a meritocracy. And a meritocracy is obtained through work. Liberals hate work. They've always hated work because they believe a meritocracy is a symbol of capitalist oppression. Everybody following? If I'm getting ahead of anyone here, just so you guys over there shake your heads. Everybody tracking? They've always seen merit-based work as a symbol of capitalist enslavement. The capitalist oppressors, the white male patriarchy, they want to make sure equity, not equality, but equity matters. So through equity, you have to attach people to the government. The way to attach people to the government is to destroy the rich and take from them and give to who they perceive to be the oppressed, the poor. You can't do that while you're spending massive sums of money on police and military. It's been traditionally known as the guns versus butter approach. The left always prefers the butter. They hate the guns. That's why the left, the radical left, has always hated the military. Outside of the systemic oppression argument, they've always hated the military and they've always hated the cops. They get in the way of their big state plans because they cost a lot of money. And second, they're symbols of what they see as empire building with our military and institutional racism locally with the cops.
Oh, let me say that, first of all, everything that Dan said there, I agree with. But here's where I feel he's wrong. And again, wrong is probably not the right way to word this. He didn't take it far enough. I will. He's asserting that really what it comes down to is you've got the real progressives within the Democratic Party. They just hate the police. They're pigs. Pigs in blankets fry like bacon. We got that, agree with that, and so to a certain degree, they placate to that part of their voting constituency. Okay. Now when he said that, there's an awful lot of money that they put in policing, and that's money that could be used for all of the things that put the people back on the plantation, because apparently, as I've told you before, if you are a black American, the Democrats really do see you as stupid. You aren't qualified to be able to go out and accomplish anything for yourself, so you need government to do it for you. So they put you on the plantation or the project, same thing. They stick you into the inner city blight, and they basically forget about you unless it's time to roll you out to vote. And that's it. They just, quote, give you stuff, keep you subservient and dependent just so that you are a voting bloc. So, yeah, I get that, but I'm going to take it to another level, an even more sinister level. Conservatives know, and most conservatives are pro-life. And the history of Planned Parenthood can be traced back to Margaret Sanger, who was into eugenics. Eugenics was actually teaching which derived from Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. You want to know where all of the race nonsense is happening in our country right now? It has little to nothing to do with, quote, religion, but it had everything to do with secular Darwinism, because it was Darwin who taught not every human being was fully evolved, that there were races of human beings that were underdeveloped. And it was amazing how he would describe them as dark in their pigmentation, jungleistic and savage in their behavior. Gee, who could he possibly have been talking about? So you have the so-called scientific expert Charles Darwin and the scientists of his day even having human zoos in places like New York City, where people were allowed to go in and look at pygmies and aborigines and tribal people that were captured from other countries and placed into a zoo as if they were some type of attraction to be stared at, gawked at, and had little kids throwing things at. All in the name of science. Look at these underdeveloped, not fully evolved peoples. Margaret Sanger took that to the next level, referring to them as human weeds that needed to be eradicated. Thus, abortion. Abortion was not about high society people wanting to control the number of children they had. No, nay. It was about not letting the greasy immigrants that were coming into Ellis Island breed, and it was about not letting the human weeds, i.e. black people, breed. Half-wits breed. What they considered to be a drain on society. Do not let them breed. Now, I bring all that up because there is a far more sinister reason why these extreme liberals, and I will even throw in there the it's not a left-right thing, it's a right-wrong thing, the oligarch, the deep state, the powers that be, whatever term you want to give them, they come out and they talk about, we want equity. We're thinking that reparations is a good thing. We're thinking that we need more critical race theory. They throw all that out there because, number one, that keeps us divided. That keeps us fighting with each other so that we're not paying attention to what they're actually up to. And what they're actually up to is eradicating races of people they don't want around. Why are they tolerating the body bags building up and the violence in the streets? Where is that happening? For the most part, the inner cities. The minority neighborhoods are the ones most directly affected by the lack of police presence. You know, Charles Barkley asked a year ago, well, if we defund the police, who are people going to call? Ghostbusters? And he was more insightful than he realizes, because when they've taken cameras to the streets and asked people in minority neighborhoods, in black neighborhoods, in Hispanic neighborhoods, do you want more or less cops? The people who live there overwhelmingly say, no, we do not want less cops. So they take stories where they find those cases where a police officer didn't completely follow protocol or he overreacted. We blow it all up out of proportion. We give it a national spotlight, a national focus. We beat it every single day. We get people ramped up, angry, angst, and just being vitriolic with one another. And all of it is designed to allow there to be this continual chaos. And while the chaos is happening, how many people died in Chicago over the weekend? And not a word was said because it was, quote, black on black crime. And here I'm going to say something that, Dan, you didn't say it because you didn't take it far enough. Among the real global elites that are in political power in this country, the real decision makers, the puppet masters behind the AOCs and the Nancy Botox Pelosi's and the Chuck E. Cheese Schumers and even that empty puppet in the White House right now, the real decision makers, the real king makers, though they will promote as a marketing tool welfare and let's take care of people and yeah, let's defund the police so that we got more money for the social issues. But while we're defunding the police, these people are just going to kill themselves. And that's good. They're a drain. We need them gone. Ultimately, they want this chaos and the blood in the streets because it's post-birth abortion of undesirables that they want gone. So while they campaign on we want to take care of you, you haven't been treated right, you're not being given equal treatment, things haven't been equitable for you, they tell them all these things they want to hear and embrace the critical race theory and yada yada, and they get a bunch of young, dumb, white, liberal teachers and white, young, dumb, liberal, young people to be their little foot soldiers with the propaganda. Well, in reality, behind the scenes, they want the chaos, they want the violence, they want the murders, because if you will, it's the real life version of the purge. Boom. There it is. What'd you think of that rant? Hey, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel. After all, I was on a little vacation, so I'm sure once again they have tweaked with our subscriptions, probably tweaked yours. Check and make sure you're still subscribed. Share this, please, to your social media platforms. Let everybody know we're back.